The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
You are now logged into WarUp on the WPIAL, featuring your hosts, Greg Warnock and Jeff Upson. PA Power Wrestling. Pennsylvania is wrestling.
Welcome into WarUp on the WPIAL. Greg Warnock alongside Jeff Upson as we will recap the AA WPIAL championships. But first, we'll talk a little bit about the section championships that happened on Friday at Cannon McMillan. Each and every year, Frank Volcano always asks the coaches what they liked about it, what they disliked, any kind of changes that may be able to happen.
Well, Greg, let me ask you, what did you, I mean, this is now this is what, our second year now?
Second year doing this, yeah.
So what do you feel like, how did the section tournaments go? And one gym, quite a interesting setup.
Yeah, so they do, because they have 9 mats set up, 3 and 6 in the center, and then 3 on the auxiliary gym. So you have it done by section, so 3 mats for each section. Then they had the semifinals where each one had 2 mats from there, and then the consolations were in the auxiliary gym. Overall, I feel like, especially this year, after seeing this year's tournament, sections and WPIAL-wise, it's time to eliminate the section tournament.
Okay.
It really is. The eliminations for the sections in Section 1, for the whole tournament, we're talking 14 weight classes. Section 1 eliminated 30 kids on Friday night. Section 2, 37 kids. Section 3, 40 kids. So that is a total of 107 total kids eliminated in that first night, as opposed to putting them all in a weight class and going for the WPIAL championship. You have 7 to 8, if you divide that number by 14 weight classes, that's 7 to 8 kids per weight class that you eliminated, as opposed to having them wrestle in just a full-on bracket in the WPIAL championships, which would be a lot easier on the WPIAL steering committee, on everybody in general. So you have that. That's it for the eliminations. Some weight classes, they didn't even have 4 kids to send to the WPIAL championships.
I think you said there was one weight where there was just one wrestler.
195-pound Section 1, Bryson Miller of Freedom, the only kid to weigh in. He didn't have to wrestle.
So
all he had to do is make weight. He gets a gold medal.
That's awesome.
And
that's incredible.
The argument that is made for some of the coaches, some of the smaller schools, some of the schools that aren't competing as well for the team portion in the beginning of the year, is that section tournament is sometimes the biggest tournament for their kids. They practice all year. They stay throughout the entire season. They practice during, as Burrell's making its run for another WPIAL crown and a state run. While they're doing that, they are still practicing because the section championships are coming up, and that's what they practice for. And 30 years from now, they have that medal to look back on and say, hey, you know what, I was at least a 3rd-place finisher in my section or a 4th-place finisher in my section.
Yeah, but if you win the section, I mean, if you take 3rd in a section of 3 guys, I mean,
what are you earning?
Yeah, I mean,
it's really a participation medal at this point. I mean,
sure.
How you kind of see it that way. And the other thing that's mind-boggling is that there were over 30 scratches on Friday for the section championship.
But they turned in the rosters on
Tuesday.
I was going to say, it had to be early this week. So
it was Tuesday is when they had to be in by.
So you're saying between Tuesday and Friday.
Over 30 kids scratched. And half of those were scratched before they even entered the building on Friday.
So why even put them in
the tournament
on
Tuesday?
Tuesday?
Now you're making the steering committee seed them in a bracket and put brackets together and make them readjust 2 days later. And those 30 kids are probably those 30 kids that the coaches are talking about. We want to keep them around all season.
Yeah, right.
And then they don't even have the nerve to go in and wrestle in that tournament.
And see, I'm sort of, I mean, I see both sides a little bit. I mean, if the goal is to grow the sport of wrestling, you want to have the numbers up and the participation of wrestlers up. You want to keep those wrestlers interested, but at the same time, to what extent are we going to do that? Dangle a ribbon in front of them and say, "Look, all you have to do is show up, and you can earn this." Mm-hmm. I mean, that's now what was the effect of the sectional tournaments on the WPIAL tournament the next day on Saturday? Did that have? I mean,
to be honest with you, I think this is probably the worst I've seen in WPIAL wrestling as far as depth-wise goes. There were some good matches in the semis and in the finals, and in the 3rd and 5th place matches, but overall, those first 3 rounds were horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible. I would throw you some numbers. The pigtail round, 50 bouts wrestled in the pigtail round. 34 were decided by fall, 2 by tech. So that's 36 of the possible 50 bouts were by fall or tech fall. That's 72% of the matches. The quarterfinals, which is your top 8 in the WPIAL, 56 total bouts, 34 were decided by fall or tech fall.
In the quarterfinals.
Quarterfinals
Wow.
of the WPIAL championships, 34 by fall or tech. 30 of those were falls, by the way. That's 61%. First round of consolations, 50 bouts, 33 decided by fall or tech, another 66%. That means out of 156 bouts in the first 3 rounds that people paid admission to go see, 103 of those were by fall or tech fall. 66% of the matches by fall or tech.
Yeah, that's not good. I mean,
and if you throw those other kids into the mix, maybe you have some more of those bad matches in the opening rounds, but at the very least, you're going to see some more competitive matches. I feel like.
And I think if you see the more competitive matches in the early rounds, and if it funnels through, and you may still have a high number of major decisions, tech falls in the quarterfinals, but certainly not that many tech falls and falls in the District 7 quarterfinals. I mean, it was mind-boggling. It was such a quick tournament, and it was such a tight schedule as it was. Yeah.
They were ahead of schedule the whole day. Because
you had
all
30
these
scratches
falls.
and you had all those falls and that's interesting. I don't, that's a tough one, but you're right. That would beg to the question is, do you just scrap the section tournaments? I mean, District 1 had the same issue. The District 1 in AAA out in the eastern part of the state, they have 7 different sectionals. Now, granted, that's a very large district. District 1 it's the largest number of schools in the state, but they had some brackets where in the sections that there was two wrestlers. And they've been talking for years about whether they should eliminate those league championships. And now they actually have 3 different, their District 1 championships. They don't have a one District 1 championship. They have 3 different sites. They have North, South, and Central. So, I mean, this is an issue across the state, not just in the WPIL, but that to me is kind of embarrassing if you have that many tech falls and falls in the quarterfinals of your district championship.
Yeah, and the other thing that happens too is they have, because of the fact that the whole WPIL championships are wrestled in one day, they have the Fat 5 match rule. So they now cannot wrestle back to third place because some of those kids may not get the opportunity to wrestle again. So what they do, if you lose in a semifinal, you're automatically dropped down to the third and fourth place match. And they seed it by formula. Because and the biggest reason is because they don't really have time to go from Friday to Saturday to seed an entire bracket. So now they do the 3-section champs, and then they do it by formula.
Just looking at how that could affect a wrestler, and especially when you're talking about the placement into the Southwest region, which we know is a very critical component of this. You look at 106 in the WPIL. Your top 2 finishers were Connor Redinger and Joe Fisher. Now, I would argue that you could say the third best wrestler in that weight class was Trent Schulthesis from Burrell, right? And you look at that, and he loses to Joey Fisher 3-0. In the quarterfinals. So he doesn't make the semifinals. So he drops down. He can no longer go for third. But because Ryan Michaels and Damian George made the semifinals, they automatically drop down to that third place bout. And I would argue that, Trent could possibly be the third best wrestler in that weight. But the fact that he lost to Joey Fisher in the same score, Ryan Michaels lost to Joey Fisher 3-0 as well. And, he doesn't have a chance to wrestle back for third, which screws up the Southwest regional pairings.
And there's no telling that Velocic beats Michaels or Velocic beats George. I think Velocic's actually probably beaten George already this year. But that opportunity for Velocic is not there. And now he is thrown. The biggest thing that the WPIAL Steering Committee has always said is that they want to get their very best wrestlers to state. That is their main objective for entering the Southwest Regional. You're not giving your wrestlers now the best chance. There are a few different weight classes where I could point to that the 5th place finisher is better than the 3rd or the 4th place guy.
Yeah, for sure.
And that is not it's not how it should be. But because of the fact that you get 2 or 3 good kids in one section, then all of a sudden, your top kid is the top seed, but then they're all bundled up in the bottom half with another section champion, and you're not getting your best kids, and then you have a guy walking into the semifinals who may be the 5th or 6th best kid in the weight, but they're going to finish 4th because of the fact that they're just gifted a top 4 finish.
Yeah, no, I mean, I 100% agree with you there, and I think that's an issue when you look at it. It would be one thing if you wrestled back full wrestlebacks at 3rd place, and there is no real question there. And
I understand the steering committee's decision because they can't do it because of the 5-match rule.
Yeah.
So there are some kids who may lose in that first round that they may not be able to get to that 3rd place because of the fact of the 5-match rule. So it is a situation where I understand why the logic of why they have to drop down from the semifinals. But if it's a 2-day tournament, they are able to wrestle all the way back for 3rd.
So let me ask you this. So we realize that there's an issue, I would say, with numbers that you provided, with the quality of talent, but also the way that the brackets are laid out, and our top finishers, are they actually getting? Are they the right representation of those top wrestlers? What do you do? So if it was a perfect world for you, how would you change that? Because you still are going to have the WPIAL Championship, a 2-day tournament. So
right.
You're going to have to wrestle Friday, Saturday. You're just saying enlarge the brackets, make it a 24-man bracket or something?
I just make it all. I have no section tournament. You seed every kid 1 to 24. We know the WPIAL does a great job in seeding, so I wouldn't be worried about that. You're going to see lopsided scores, especially in that first round of the championships. But those kids who lose in that first round are going to be wrestling their similar opponents in the consolations. They're going to have 2 or 3 really good matches, as opposed to wrestling a section tournament where they may only get 1 good match because they're going to get probably blown out in the opening round of the section tournament because they're wrestling a top seed, and then they have to fall down to try to get back for 3rd, and they may have 1 good match, maybe 2. This way, they still get some good matches. They still get some quality wrestling. And you know what? They don't get the medal. Next year, you're placing top 7 in the WPIAL. It's not like we're placing top 2 or top 3 and it's near impossible to advance. Right. You could be in the top 7. That means you just got to work better. You got to work harder. If that's what it means to you. If it means that much, work harder in the off season or work harder during the season, whatever the case might be, to try to finish in the top 7, which to me, because you're advancing so many, I don't think you have the need to have the section tournament.
This is the most fired up I've seen you in the entire season. This is even worse than when you wore the Christmas tie that actually jingled and made noise.
You enjoyed that tie.
That was a terrible tie. I agree with you, Greg. I agree with you that there's probably, this was a nice experiment, if you will, for the WPIAL and the steering committee, but it looks and appears to be that it's not really working to the extent that it could and or should. So I agree. I think you enlarge the brackets. I think you make a 24-man bracket or whatever you may be. Because based on past practices, you're going to have 30 scratches anyways.
Right.
And just wrestle that championship. And as you said, if you can't finish top 7 at the WPIAL championships, work harder.
Yeah.
I agree with you. We don't need to have the sections just to say, hey, I finished 3 out of 3 in my section, and that's just silly.
Or 5 kids weighed in, I placed 4th. I have this medal 30 years from now because I beat 1 kid at sections.
I'm not gonna lie. I remember it was the funniest thing. I wrestled my sophomore. It was my freshman or sophomore year, one of those two. We wrestled in a JV tournament at Central Dauphin, and it was like me and 2 other teammates were all in the same bracket, and then there was like 1 other kid from a non-Central Dauphin school, and I took 2nd. I lost to a kid on my team, and I'm just thinking like, what? And was the medal, the trophy was huge. Like the trophy was huge, and I'm like, this is a joke. Like you should not waste your money. I remember saying that. I was like, why are you even handing out a trophy for a JV tournament, a 2nd place finish? And the trophy was like one of the biggest trophies I had. It was kind of embarrassing. And I didn't display that at my house. I was like, hey, look at this. I got a 2nd place at a JV tournament. But right. I don't know. Maybe that's.
It's in the section tournaments used to be a big deal because they only used to take the top 3. They used to be the top 3 came out of sections when I was in high school, and winning a section championship meant something for those couple of years. I would say once it got to my senior year, the section championships didn't mean as much, but during that time of those first couple of years, you were actually eliminating good kids from that tournament.
Yeah.
Now
you're not. You're not eliminating.
There are so many kids going on, and there's so few numbers too. Now, if the participation numbers went up, and maybe that's something in the beginning of the year. If the steering committee can get a number count and say how many wrestlers are we going to have in the section championships, then maybe they look to do it. But if the numbers are like they are now, and by the way, I also heard South Fayette maybe go in the AAA next year.
Oh, boy.
And if that happens, you're just eliminating another school who...
A full lineup school.
A full lineup, exactly. And going from AA to AAA, South Fayette had 11 kids in the WPIAL Championships and advanced 7 to the Southwest region. So now you're taking a lot of good kids out of the WPIAL Championships.
I'd like to see South Fayette up in AAA.
But that just goes back to the numbers of that.
You're fired up. I know. I get it. Well,
it's about time, right?
Yeah, it's about time you get some excitement other than scores and, anything else that's going on. I'm glad to see that you have a pulse.
That and my Twitter account, rebounding.
Yeah. What are you up to? 120?
I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
That's because half the time I'm tweeting out for PA Power, know, so.
Yeah, that should get you some brand recognition there. I don't know. I thought it should. Let's go through and look at, so we talked about 106, and I don't think it was much of a surprise here at 106 pounds with Connor Redinger coming away with the championship. He's been ranked top 5 in the state for several weeks now, and he beats Joey Fisher from South Park in the finals 4-0. Not a huge surprise there. Those two have battled back and forth this year.
No, I mean, Redinger looks solid. He looks like he's ready for a big performance here over these next couple of weeks. Fisher looked good as well. He handled Trent Velocic 3-0, controlled the match. Handled Ryan Michaels, Elizabeth Ford 3-0 as well. So Fisher looks solid too, and I'd expect him to make a nice run here at Southwest Regionals next week as well.
It's going to be tough, man. There's the 106 pounds especially. There's a lot of depth there, but I think you're right. I think Redinger's it's going to be. It's going to be his time to shine here if he wants to really make an impact on the state level. He's going to have to really perform well at the Southwest region.
Yeah, Redinger comes in as the top seed at the Southwest Regional Tournament. As far as some guys around the Southwest region, who do you like that's not from the WPIAL?
Well, Amon Ol from St. Joe's Academy, he's 34-1 on the season. He's a freshman, just been completely dominant in the way he's been wrestling as of late. So he's on that bottom half with Joey Fisher there. But Kai Burkett from Chestnut Ridge, a guy who just last week at the team state tournament, he knocked off the number 1 ranked kid in the state, Jacob Blair. Burkett's a guy who he's like his older brother. He was a little bit undersized to start the season, but he's grown into 106 pounds, I think, and he looks a lot more comfortable. And boy, he wrestled, great at the team championships for Chestnut Ridge. So he's a guy that I think is going to challenge. I think you look at that bottom half, and there's a lot of talent there. But I think Connor Redinger sort of has the not the easier side because you have Baylor Shunk there from Penns Valley. He's a returning state medalist. So there's a lot of depth here. And, of course, he could see Trent Velocic in the second round there because, just the way the things
with him being a 5th-place finisher in the region. Another guy, Baylor Shunk as well, out of Penns Valley, solid wrestler. He and Trent Velocic, depending on how they turn out, could end up wrestling for a potential spot in the state championships.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's going. I think 106 is one of the more intriguing weights for me personally to watch.
113 pounds, your champion in the WPIAL. It was Ian Oswald of Burrell. He defeats Shane Kemper of Burgestown 6-0 for the title. Kemper had a good tournament. He defeats Doug Bittner of Mount Pleasant 5-0 in the semifinals to get there. As far as this tournament, not too surprising. Oswald comes away with gold. No,
I wasn't surprised that Ian was able to come away with a championship as a freshman. He's been pretty dominant all year. But you look at Shane Kemper, that's a freshman beating a senior in Doug Bittner. Doug Bittner's a guy who's been around the block for quite a number of years, but Kemper beats him 5-0. I was impressed with the way he wrestled. And, not necessarily that Oswald didn't look dominant because he did, but
Oswald, it was a 1-0 match going into the third with Kemper.
Sure.
And Kemper chose neutral because he didn't want to be underneath Oswald, and Oswald ends up getting a takedown and he gets 3 near falls. But Kemper battled him on his feet, and he wrestled him tough. The first 2 periods, obviously, without a takedown awarded to either guy. So I thought Kemper looked solid, and I'm interested to see how he does here in the Southwest region.
It sounds like he's closing the gap, that's for sure.
Right. Yeah, you look at the Southwest Regional, Josh Boozle comes in as the number 1 seed. Oswald is the number 2, and Nathan Holderbaum of Chestnut Ridge is number 3.
Yeah, and you look at here, and Josh Boozle's kind of the guy that everyone's chasing here. He was a state runner-up last year. But there's quite a few other wrestlers here that I'm interested in seeing. One of those wrestlers is Brock McMillan from Glendale. He's a freshman. His 2 losses this year are only to Boozle. He lost to him in the District 6 finals last weekend, and he's another guy that I think if he gets on a run, I definitely see him in the semifinals here. And I think he and Oswald will most likely meet there, and I think that could be a good bout. But then I wouldn't sleep on Jack Bruce either from Blairsville. He's a junior. He wrestled at Kiski Prep the 2 years prior, and he finished third in a really deep District 6 tournament, like I said, with Boozle and McMillan. So I think you're going to see some good competition on that bottom half. That top half, though, I think Boozle's, it's his for the taking.
Yeah, you look at Oswald. He's going to have Bruce potentially in the quarterfinals, and then he'd have to wrestle McMillan in the semis. So he's going to have to really get through 3 District 6 guys, solid District 6 guys, if he wants to win a title. And the way Shane Kemper is positioned, I like him to get to the semifinals.
Yeah, Shane Kemper definitely he has that possibility to get there. I mean, you look at who's on his side. He's got Justin Schaefer from Berlin on the bottom half there at District 5 runner-up. So, yeah, Shane Kemper, if he wrestles like he did this last weekend, I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the semifinals.
120 pounds for the WPIAL is one of those weight classes where you talk about all the guys on the bottom half of the bracket, and because of the positioning, and that's how it happened here. Tyler Simmerman was the section champion in Section 2, so that put Manny Dovshek and Jimmy Guire both on the bottom as they finished second and third. Kenny Dushak of Freedom was your number 2 seed, and Colin Dunn of South Fayette your number 3. And in my opinion, going into this, I thought Dunn, Dovshek, Guire, and Dushak were 2 through 5. Simmerman coming in as the favorite in this weight class, and you had them all in the bottom half. So how they would finish, one of them would be second, one of them would be third, another one fifth, another one seventh. This is because of how the bracket falls, and it's pretty much what happened here. Simmerman beats Dushak 3-2 for the title. Dovshek ends up finishing in third place. And Guire, though, actually was upset in the fifth-place match. So Jordan Devine of Elizabeth Forward, 6-3. But Colin Dunn of South Fayette was your seventh-place finisher.
Yeah, that is a strange bracket, the way that fell, because, like you said, that bottom half was just loaded. I was very surprised to see Guire get knocked off by Devine in the fifth-place match. But, that was a case of just a lumping of talent on that bottom half.
Right, and that's because Simmerman was the top seed, and obviously he wins the WPIAL championship, so he proves that. But Kenny Dushek looked solid against Manny Dovshek, and it was a really good match between Simmerman and Dushek, 2 outstanding freshmen. We're going to have a lot of fun watching those guys over the years.
Yeah, I agree.
You look at the Southwest Regional and how the bracket looks. Simmerman gets the 3rd seed, as your top seed in the weight class was Brian Dawson of Hindman, and your number 2, Byron Daubert of Forest Hills.
Man, this weight class is loaded when you look at some of the names here. And just looking at the top half here, Dawson, he gets the top seed by way of having won the District 5 championship. But Zach Whitmer from St. Joe's Academy, he lost in the semifinals of the District 6 tournament to Byron Daubert, as you mentioned. And then Daubert goes on and beats Derek Christie in the finals, a guy who was a state medalist last year. Whitmer is one of our top incoming freshmen for this year, and he's 36-2 in the season, so I think he's wrestling pretty well. But I would expect Whitmer to come out of that top half and get into the semifinals. Derek Christie's going to have his hands full with James Guire to begin with, and then Kenny Dushak's going to have Clayton Lee from Berlin, who's 17-5 on the year, and Simmerman's actually going to have Sebastian Kekic from Johnstown. He's been kind of all over. He was at Johnstown, then at McCourt. Now he's back at Johnstown. So he's not going to have an easy route to the semifinals. And as you said, Daubert there on the bottom. I would have to say Daubert's the favorite based on the fact that he won a loaded District 6 tournament here.
Were you surprised Dawson got the top seed?
Surprised to see. I thought Daubert really had that. I thought he was the top seed for sure. I thought Dawson maybe second or third. Simmerman, I thought, probably could have been the second.
You look from the WPIAL perspective, Simmerman and Dushek wrestling very well. Manny Dovshek, former state qualifier, as well as Jimmy Guire. So you have 4 really good wrestlers from the WPIAL side, but then you have 3 or 4 guys from District 6, plus then you throw Brian Dawson in the mix. This is probably the deepest, one of the deepest weight classes in the Southwest region.
When you look at accomplishments, yeah, it's definitely one of the deepest. I mean, we have a state medalist. We have a bunch of state qualifiers. So, yeah, I would say it's definitely one of the deeper ones. And you have
3 outstanding freshmen.
Yeah, 3 outstanding freshmen. Zach Whitmer sort of the leading that charge. He's just been on fire until the District 6 tournament, like I said. And that just really shows how good Daubert is, the fact that he took out Whitmer and then Christie. He pinned him in the finals. So, yeah, this is going to be a fun one to watch.
126 pounds, Gavin Teasdale becomes the 28th wrestler to win 4 WPIAL championships. He defeats Sean Broadway 2 days in a row. He wins in the finals 18-4 major decision to get the title. Broadway had a tight one with ZJ Ward of Freedom. He beat him 1-0 to get to the finals. Ward had a tight one with Jet Pattison of McGuffey, a former WPIAL champion. He beat him 3-2. So Pattison, because of how the bracket falls, can only finish 5th at best, although he was the number 4 wrestler in this tournament. ZJ Ward ends up finishing in 3rd place. But overall, the bracket, again, just can't work out for the case for Pattison to be able to get in the top 4.
I mean, you look at Broadway, and Broadway had to wrestle from that first round. He had Nick Moore. He pinned him in 47 seconds. But then he had Brian Gold from Burl, who's 31-10 on the year. He had to beat him 2-0, beat ZJ Ward 1-0, and then face Gavin Teasdale. So by virtue of the fact that he finished second in his section, despite the fact that it was Gavin Teasdale he was in the section with, Jet Pattison, I mean, as you said, he only loses 3-2 to ZJ Ward. I think Jet Pattison, finishing 5th, I would like to see him and Austin Ryan wrestle. I think he beats Austin Ryan, to tell you the truth, I think.
And really, how does Brian Gall finish? Because he finished 7th. He loses to Sean Broadway 2-0, and he loses to Jet Pattison 2-1.
Yeah, I think.
And he's a 7th place finisher now in this weight class.
Which is, and then as compared to a 4th place in Austin Ryan, which, I mean, that to me is just a disservice to the quality of wrestlers you have here. I mean, we're talking about a guy from Burl with 10 losses. A Burl schedule and you only have 10 losses, you're pretty much state qualifier caliber in that sense. So, and clearly these guys are all neck and neck. Broadway, ZJ Ward, Jet Pattison, a guy you said has been on the top of the podium before here. So, I think, you look at Austin Ryan, he's 18-15 and he beats Brady Sherlock 4-3. And then he automatically, because he made the semifinals, because he had a 4-3 win, he's down to.
He went 1-2 and finished 4th place.
Yeah, right.
And no disrespect to Austin Ryan, he's a good wrestler, but 1-2 is all he had to win 1 match to be the 4th place finisher in a WPIAL.
Where Sean Broadway had to win 3 matches he had to go 3-1 just to finish 2nd.
Right, and tough matches too. Brian Gall, ZJ Ward, people that aren't going to be cakewalks by any means. But again, another case where the top 4, or 2 through 5 rather, are all in the bottom half. You look at the Southwest Regional, Gavin Teasdale obviously coming in as the favorite to be a 4-time champ here as well. Garrett Cornell of Everett is your number 2. Do you like Cornell here, or do you think Broadway can get by him? Or even Ward?
Well, I mean, on the bottom half, Malachi Duval is a guy I think is probably going to make the finals here. Freshman from St. Joe's Academy. Duval he's going to have Brian Goal in the first round, but I think he won a tough District 6 tournament, and I like the way he's been wrestling as of late. But that bottom half is pretty loaded. And you look at Sean Broadway's down there with ZJ Ward and Garrett Cornell from Everett, a guy who I'm been impressed with this most of the season. So on the top half, Gavin Teasdale is going to do it. Gavin Teasdale does.
Right.
It's just a matter of who's going to get out in that bottom half, and I think it's going to come down to Duval and Cornell and possibly Broadway. So it should be a tight race between those.
Here's a good example of positioning in the Southwest Regional. Austin Ryan and Brady Sherlock are both in the middle of the top half of the bracket. So in the top, you have Teasdale and Pattison, who will likely wrestle in the quarterfinals, with Teasdale obviously likely to win. Brady Vila, Austin Ryan, Brady Sherlock, and Tristan Rutter are your top 4 in the next quadrant down. One of those 4 is going to advance because you get the top 6. Once you get to the semifinals, you're guaranteed a top 6 finish.
Correct.
One of those 4 is going to advance to Hershey.
And you look at Jet Pattison, and because he was the 5th place finisher, he's going to lose to Gavin Teasdale after, he wins his first match.
Yep.
He's no longer going to be guaranteed a spot at States because he's not going to make the semifinals, as opposed to Austin Ryan, who I think you put Jet Pattison down on that quadrant down there.
He wins.
I think he gets to the semifinals for sure.
I agree. And now all of a sudden he's now in the top half with Teasdale, and he's not going to win that match. So now he's going to have to fight back through the consolations, and who knows what's going to fall down to him in those consolations as well. So now you're not getting your best wrestler, or in this case, it could end up being a Tristan Rudder who goes to the semifinals and ends up going to Hershey. Wouldn't you rather, if you're the WPIAL, have Jet Pattison there than see a guy from District 6?
Yeah, I'd much rather. I mean, Austin Ryan comes in with a 19 and 17 record. That quadrant, out of those 4 wrestlers, one of those wrestlers is going to make to the state tournament. That's questionable. That's questionable.
Right. And then on the bottom half, like you mentioned, Duval, Broadway, Ward, and Cornell, one of those guys isn't.
Yeah, sure.
Because of the way the bracket falls and how you fall into the consolation. So one of those 4 guys will not make it. So definitely something that when we talk about the WPIAL and you look at the section tournament, it was important sometimes to get that medal for the kid whenever you're hurting your chances for the WPIAL to get as many kids to Hershey as possible. 132 pounds, and this one was the surprise, I think, of the tournament. Your champion was Trent Schulthesis from Freedom. He comes in as the number 5 seed. He finished as a runner-up in the section. He had lost to Donovan Chambers of Elwood City the previous night. He beats Jason Baker of Derry in the quarterfinals by fall. He then knocks off top seed Anthony Corrado of Burrell 6-0, a decisive win. And he gets Alex Miskovich of Mount Pleasant in the finals, and he defeats Miskovich 5-3. Miskovich beat John Rocco Cazales, which is a big win for him, 3-2. Rocco Cazales beat Chambers of Elwood City 9-7. So a lot of depth at this weight class. Schultheis comes out on top. Miskovich 2. Rocco Cazales does upend Anthony Corrado after losing to him a couple of times. He beats him 4-2 in overtime for 3rd, and then Donovan Chambers is your 5th place guy.
This was a crazy weight class, man. And Schultheis is not the guy who I said, looking at this bracket, was going to be in the finals for sure. I mean, you look at this, he's a guy who he's lost to Donovan Chambers 3 times already this year. He loses to him the night before. And you're thinking, well, he'll probably get beat by Baker, probably be a Baker Corrado semifinals. It's amazing for how good Miskovich wrestled this weekend. He beat a very tough John Rocco Cazales 3-2 in a grueling semifinals. But then Schultheis beats him 5-3. I mean, you're talking about a freshman who really had no business winning the WPIAL championship, to be frank. All of a sudden comes out of nowhere and just has the tournament of his life. I mean, this was a great performance by him. I mean, everything came together for him. I mean, it's easy for him to get to the finals and say, all right, I made it here. This was more than I expected, or more than people may expect it. But then just to win a championship over some of the top-ranked guys in the state.
And decisively, too. It wasn't even like it was a fluke. I hit a big shot, or I hit a big throw, and I was able to get a 5-point move. He controlled every single match he was in.
Yeah, and that was very impressive, the way he wrestled. And as you said, if you would have said that freshman Schultheis would finish ahead of Cazales, Corrado, and Donovan Chambers, a guy who he's not beaten yet this year, I would say you probably put all your money on that one. But yeah, very impressive performance by him. And
to talk about 132 pounds, we're joined by the champion, Trent Schultheis of Freedom. Trent, thanks for joining us on the show.
Thank you.
Well, Trent, you had a big tournament, but let's first go back to the section championships on Friday. You had a chance to wrestle Donovan Chambers of Elwood City, a guy you've had trouble with in beating in these this past season. Talk a little about that match, and you end up losing that first match with Chambers to finish second in the section. Talk a little bit about what happened in that match.
I mean, he's pretty good. He's a good wrestler, so he's just older, stronger.
What kind of things did you struggle with in getting going with him?
Riding him, mostly. I get out of position a lot when I'm riding, and I think that's one of the things I need to work on. I get reversed a lot, so.
So that put you in the top half of the bracket. When you looked at the WPIAL Championships on Saturday, what was your confidence level going in?
I mean, I was pretty confident because I think I fell pretty well in the bracket. I would rather fell where I did than on the bottom half. So
And Trent, this is you had to defeat Jason Baker, a guy you had lost to earlier in the season. Is that correct?
Yes.
So, what was that like? What was the difference this time around as opposed to that first time you guys wrestled?
I just felt like I had more confidence this time, and like I've been working pretty hard, so I knew I could beat him because it was a close match last time. And I figured it was anybody's match, but I just came out with a fall this time.
And in the semifinals, you're sitting nice there, but you have the top seed and a fellow freshman, AJ Corrado from Burrell. Did you wrestle him at all this season? Are you familiar with him at all?
Yeah, I wrestled him our team went to the Ultimate Duels, and he beat me 6-2 there.
So that was for you to come out. So he beat you 6-2, and then you turn around and beat him 6-0. That's a huge turnaround there. What did you do different this match that really changed the dynamics of that?
I just had I don't know. I feel like I had more confidence. Like all the guys in my room get me better every single day. I mean, I have a great room, great coaches, so they just give me a lot of confidence. And I just went out with more confidence, and feel like that's all the difference.
So you had, if confidence was the key factor here, you had to be feeling pretty confident going into the finals, despite going up against a senior Alex Miskovich from Mount Pleasant, a guy who's been to the state tournament before. He knocks off a state medalist in John Rocco Gonzalez. What was the level of confidence like going into the finals against Miskovich, and did you just kind of let things fly and have nothing to lose?
Yeah, I looked at it like I'm just a freshman. No one's expecting anything out of me, so I just took all the pressure off me and went out and wrestled my match.
How important was it for you to set the pace early and be able to control things?
I mean, it was pretty important because once I get a lead, I feel like I have less pressure on me and I just wrestle more in my style.
Coming into practice today as a WPIAL champion, does it feel any different at all, or is it today just another day for you?
It's just another day. I just went in the room, got my work in.
So you're going to head into the Southwest Regional as the number 3 seed. Do you really look much at the brackets, or is it just about going out and wrestling each match like you did in the WPIAL Championships?
Just like I did in the WPIAL Championships. I haven't even looked at the brackets yet.
I like the way you operate, Trent. I like the way you think, and definitely not getting caught up. And as you said, I said this earlier before we had you on. I said I wasn't expecting you to win, and that doesn't matter because you obviously were, and you said, hey, I can go out there and I can do it, and you did. It was probably one of the most impressive. It was the most impressive performance for me of the tournament. The way that you went out there and took care of business. So. What was your goals in the beginning of the season? Was this something that you said, I want to make the state tournament? Talk about just coming into the season.
Yeah, coming into the season, I just wanted to place in the states. That's all. Just get a high place in the states. That was my goal to place.
And talking about, I know you had mentioned with Donovan Chambers, he's a little bit older, a little bit stronger. You've had some troubles with him. Is that just sort of like a matchup thing with him? Is it you just feel like you don't match up well with him?
Yeah, our styles are a lot different. So, yeah, we just don't match up very well. I don't know. I beat kids that beat him, and he's beat kids that beat me. So, we just, we have close matches, but our matchups are different. That's all I think it is.
And do you feel like if you had another chance to wrestle him, which may end up happening at the Southwest Regional Tournament, do you feel like you know now what to do in order to be able to be successful and beat him?
Yeah, I feel like the match can go either way again. But I don't know. Well, I guess we'll find out.
And Trent, we look forward to seeing you in the way that you've been wrestling. I think, like you said, don't even bother looking at the brackets. You're set up nicely.
That's
As
right.
Greg said, you're a 3rd seed. That's all you need to know. All you need to know is your bout number, and that's it, and just go out and wrestle, and I think you'll just be fine. And looking forward to seeing how you can compete. If you keep it up like you did at the WPIAL Championships, I mean, we're expecting you to reach your goals and have that top medal at the state tournament.
Yeah.
Well, Trent, congratulations on your WPIAL championship, and best of luck this coming weekend as you head into the Southwest Regional.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Trent.
Thanks again to Trent Schulthesis of Freedom for joining us on the show. And then you look at the Southwest region, I mentioned he is the 3rd seed. Jacob Powers comes into this one as the top seed. Do you like Schulthesis coming out here?
I think based on the way, if he wrestles like he did last weekend, I expect him to be in the finals, to tell you the truth. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. He's on the bottom half with some pretty tough opponents here. But if you look at how critical it was for certain individuals, John Rocco Gonzalez, remember, a returning state medalist, he's third out of District 7. He's going to most likely get Jacob Powers in that quarterfinal round, which is, that's huge. That's a at the beginning of the year, that was a top 10 ranked matchup there.
And really, if Rocco Gonzalez wins that match, though, he and Miskovich could then wrestle again in the semifinals in a rematch.
Yeah, Miskovich could end up getting through there. I think I like his chances of getting through to the semifinals. So when you look at how important that second finish is at the WPIAL Championship, Donovan Chambers, though, on a guy who owns 3 wins over the WPIAL champion Schultheis, he's going to have Isaac Benson from Huntington in that first round, and that's going to be a really tight match. Benson is extremely tough. He lost to Powers in the finals of the District 6 tournament, but he's a guy that I think is one of the best in the bracket. So,
and the winner gets Schultheis, so should be a fun one there. That's going to be an interesting matchup in the opening round. Another one, Chase Proudfit taking on AJ Corrado of Burrell, and the winner of that match, to be honest, I think could end up going to the semifinals.
I honestly think AJ Corrado is on a really good side of the. I mean, he fell, and if you look at the way it fell, I think he's in a perfect side, because if he gets through Proudfit, I think he's pretty much going into the semifinals. I don't think that's an issue there. I think he beats Cody Brown from Chestnut Ridge. So yeah, it could be another Schultheis Corrado semifinals again for the second week in a row, or Isaac Benson and Donovan Chambers. I don't know. It's that bottom has to be fun. Well, so is the top too. So
should be some interesting matchups for sure. You look at 138 pounds in the WPIAL. Jake Pale of Freedom wins the title with a 3-1 overtime win over Henri Stort of Derry. Eli Brinsky of South Fayette, your third place finisher. So you look at 138 as far as the Southwest Regional. 138 probably not the strongest weight class for the WPIAL goes, but Caleb Dowling of St. Joe's Academy is your top seed. Tristan Pugh of Berlin Brothers Valley, number 2.
Yeah, and I was surprised that Pale, I mean, that's another Freedom wrestler, so those Freedom guys are doing something right. Head coach Jim Covert is always full of some PA power, I know that. So he's doing something right over there. Pale,
they're a young team, too.
Very young, very young. So I like their chances in the next couple of years. But Pale actually had to win 3-1 in Southern Victory in the semifinals before winning 3-1 in Southern Victory in the finals. So he's clearly a guy that gets it done. But you're right. When you look at the Southwest Regional Tournament, Caleb Dowling's he's head and shoulders ahead of the pack here. He's a 30-1 on the season, and he was a returning state medalist last year. He was finished 4th. So yeah, there's a lot of talent here, but I think you look at Tristan Pugh from Berlin as a sophomore, 33-3 on the season. I like him on that bottom half, and Charlie Beatty as well from Marion Center. I think he's going to cause problems for some of those wrestlers down there, but I really do. I think it's Dowling and Pugh, or possibly we can see a District 6 finals with Charlie Beatty as well. So yeah, it's going to be tough for the WPIAL to get more than 2 guys qualified, I think, for the state tournament here.
Right. I agree with that. 145 pounds, Joe Demore of Southside. He is your champion. He defeats Tyler Griffiths of Southmoreland 5-3. He had to defeat Michael Cusick of South Fayette to get to the finals. He defeats him 5-2. Cusick comes back for 3rd place. Big win for Joe Demore.
Yeah, Joey Demore I feel like he's been around forever. I mean, he's a senior. He was 34-1 coming into this tournament. I feel like he's been around for a long time. Yeah, he had when I looked at this bracket, I thought, man, that's a kind of a tough, side of the bracket. He had Ethan Barr from McGuffey, a tough freshman. And then, as you said, Mike Cusick, another guy who seems like he's been around forever. So those two battling in the semifinals was a good match. And then, of course, with Tyler Griffiths, returning state runner-up, all the way up to 145. And that's a huge win for him, for Joe, to get over a guy of that caliber with Griffiths. So very, very good win for Joe.
And he's rewarded with the top seed at the Southwest Regional at 145 pounds because he's already beaten Alex Caldwell of Ligonier Valley this year. So Caldwell is the number 2 seed, and Austin Lee of Berlin Brothers Valley, you're number 3. So Tyler Griffiths in the bottom half with those 2 guys.
Yeah, and Tyler Griffiths, if he's going to make a repeat run to the state finals or possibly just the regional finals here, he's going to have to get through a lot. As you said, Austin Lee, that could be a potential quarterfinal matchup. And Alex Caldwell from Ligonier on the bottom half, could potentially see Michael Cusick in that quarterfinal round. So, yeah, at 45, it's got some depth to it. But by him winning this, I mean,
he's got
it was huge victory for him for placement in the bracket because, I mean, Evan Quartz, I think from St. Joe's Academy, I think he's sort of under the radar here. I think he's probably going to be the one who makes it into the semifinals against Damore. So, and I'd never count out any of those St. Joe's Academy kids. They're super tough. So, but I think the front runners here, as you said, Damore, Austin Lee, Alex Caldwell, and Tyler Griffiths, obviously being a state runner-up.
152 pounds, Thane Lawrence of Fraser wins his second WPIAL title in as many years. He won by major decision over Corey Christie, 9-0, a big win for Lawrence. Christie was having a good tournament as he has an entire senior season. He pinned Chase Kamara of Freedom, a state qualifier from last year, in the third period to advance to the finals. Kamara ends up coming back for third place. But Thane Lawrence, he looked solid against Corey Christie.
Man, I mean, when I saw that, and I was thinking, man, 9-0 over Corey Christie, a guy who just beat some really quality kids down at the team tournament in Hershey. Corey Christie's a senior who's trying to get that monkey off his back and qualify for the state tournament for this first time in his career. But Thane Lawrence, the wrestler who finished third last year at the state tournament, takes care of business. 9-0, that really shows how much he is improved, especially since I saw him at Escape the Rock in January. I wasn't overly impressed with the way he was wrestling, and he clearly turned it on because beating Christie by a 9-0 decision. That Christie's really good. So,
and you mentioned he was a little banged up, it seemed like, at Escape the Rock. So to come back and be able to come look fully healthy, he dominated the weight class. He goes into a challenging 152-pound weight class in the Southwest Regional. You got Justin McCoy at Chestnut Ridge. He's your number 1. Thane Lawrence is number 2. Andrew Todaro is your number 3 seed. Connor Law of Forest Hills, he's your number 4, and that's where Corey Christie then falls in at number 5.
152 is dangerous. I mean, it is super loaded when you look at the number of state-ranked wrestlers here. Obviously, Justin McCoy from Chestnut Ridge is the front runner there. He's looking for a second state title here from Chestnut Ridge. He's a guy who's highly touted on the national level. And Thane Lawrence, obviously, a guy who finished third last year at the state tournament, not too shabby himself. I think this could be a potential. We could see this 2 weeks in a row, possibly. Yeah. There's no doubt about it that could happen. But you look at a guy like Corey Christie, who's trying to make it to his first state tournament. He's going to have Alex Supanik from North Star in that first round, and as you said, Connor Law, who was the runner-up at the District 6 tournament. He's 33-3 on the year. Very impressed with the way he's been wrestling. But as you said, Andrew Todaro from Mount Union, even a little bit better, beating Connor Law in the finals there. That bottom half, though, between Thane Lawrence and Todaro, yeah, it's and even throwing Keegan Rothrock from St. Joe's Academy, that bottom half is going to be pretty brutal. But even the top, Camaro, Christie, Connor Law, Justin McCoy,
yeah,
it's going to be a bloodbath.
Between McCoy, Chase Camara, Corey Christie, and Connor Law, one of those guys isn't going to be able to go to the state tournament. So which one is it going to be? We'll find out here coming up. But yeah, it's definitely a loaded weight class.
Yeah, it's probably one of the deeper weight classes of the Southwest region, I would say.
160 pounds, the WPIAL's champion was Sean Gates, and he won all 3 matches by first period fall. Not one of the deeper weight classes here for the WPIAL. Your runner-up finisher was Christian Tamburo of Riverview. He lost to Gates in back-to-back days, first in the section championships and then in the WPIAL championships. Michael Didi had the upset over Jaden Gordon of Central Valley to get to the semifinals, but Tamburo beats him in overtime to advance to the final.
You look at 160 pounds, and Jared McGill, the champion out of Chestnut Ridge, he's 38-0 in the season. He's a King of the Mountain champion. He's a Powerade champion. He's down to 160 despite wrestling 170 last year. He's sort of the guy that everyone's chasing here. Sean Gates, as you said, gets the 3rd seed on a bottom half that's, I would say it's other than Derek Yingling, who's undefeated there, 32-0 from West Branch. Sean Gates could end up making the semifinals.
Yeah, I like his chances to get there to the semifinals. As far as the WPIAL kids outside of Gates, I'm not sure if they're going to have a qualifier here in this weight class.
No, I don't. I can't foresee the District 6 and District 5 they're too loaded at this weight class. I could see no one other than Sean Gates making it.
170 pounds, winning his second WPIAL championship, was Christian Clutter of McGuffey. He defeats Jaden Datz of Southmoreland in back-to-back days. He wins 1-0 in the finals over Datz to get the championship. Austin Wally of Elwood City, he was your third-place finisher at the weight class.
Christian Clutter is just really consistent the way he wrestles. He's always very consistent. You look at 170 pounds. Of course, the front runner here is Robert Patrick from Ligonier Valley, a two-time state runner-up. Last year, he lost in the finals to Edmund Ruth of Susquehanna Township, but he's undefeated on the year, 27-0. He's the top seed at 170 pounds. But Clutter is the second seed, and I like his chances of getting into the finals here. Levi Hobson from Chestnut Ridge is the third seed here, but Clutter, I think, has a straight shot, in my opinion, to the finals. I think it
could also have a good match with Derek Brown of Penn Cambria as well. He's on the bottom half to potentially get to that final. I do like Clutter to get to the semis without any issues, but that Hobson-Brown match could be a good one to see who ends up wrestling Clutter.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Clutter and his path to the semis is a little bit easier, but Hobson and Brown, as you said, those two are going to do battle. Both have over 60 wins between the two of them this year, so not as deep in the Southwest region at 170 as like I said, 160, but still a very impressive weight class.
182 pounds, your champion was John Vargo of Bentworth. He defeated Luke Shingle of McGuffey for the second day in a row. He beats him 1-0 in the finals. Shingle had a big win over Jeff Magan of Quaker Valley. He beat him 8-7 in double overtime to advance to the finals. Magan ends up coming back for third.
Yeah, and you look at the bracket here in the Southwest region, Kyle Myers from West Branch, he's a junior, 28-4 in the season. He's your top seed. Again, you look at sort of the way the bracket is laid out, 7-2 and 7-3 are both on the top half with Jeff Magan most likely going to have to wrestle Myers in that quarterfinal match. And Luke Shingle probably going to have to wrestle Levi Sheeler from North Star. But Luke Shingle, I think, has a pretty decent shot to make it into the semifinals here, in my opinion, just by looking at the bracket.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. And even Vargo set up in a nice spot as well.
Yeah, Vargo in that bottom half there. And Austin Krause from Chestnut Ridge is the third seed. But Vargo, yeah, I mean, just the way he's been wrestling, I think he could potentially be in the Southwest finals.
195 pounds, Bryson Miller of Freedom, your champion. He defeated Tyler Stein of Summit Academy for the second year in a row in the WPIAL Championships. He beats him by fall at 5:31, and he really dominated that match. Dalton Lowe of McGuffey finishes in third place. But I tell you, last year, Bryson Miller made the move up to 195. He was an undersized because he was 182 all year, but there was so much competition at 182 that he decided to go 195 because he had the clear path. It worked. He got a WPIAL championship. He made it to the state tournament. He looks a lot more solid here this year at 195, and he definitely, as opposed to a tight match with Stein last year, he took it to him this year.
So it wasn't very close. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, he ends up getting the fall, but even then, it wasn't a tight match going into that before he got the fall.
Yeah, and I think that paid off for him last year because, like you said, he earned a trip to Hershey by going up to a weight, and now he looks a little bit more comfortable. 195, it cleared out a little bit because Anthony Walters from Bishop McCourt bumped up to 220 because there's a guy by the name of Gavin Hoffman who's at 195 pounds. So your top seed here is Hunter Tremaine from North Star, who's 34-2 in the season, a junior. I like the way he's wrestling as of late. And, Tyler Stein actually has a pretty decent draw being the WPIAL runner-up here on the bottom half. So, but Bryson Miller, as you said, being that he was the District 7 champion, he's the third seed. Mount Union's area's Levi Hockenberry is your second seed. I think I like Miller in that match.
Yeah, Miller's looked really good every time I've seen him, and I think he just continues to improve each and every week. So I agree with you. I think Miller has a good shot of making the finals, and I like Stein to make the semifinals as well. So I think the WPIAL should have a good showing here at 195. You look at 220 pounds. Your champion at the weight class was Dom DeLuca of Derry. He wins by a 5-0 decision over Connor Main of West Green. Main had lost to Ashton Lopez of Bentworth in the section championships early the day before, but he beats him by major decision this time around in the semifinals, 8-0 to get there. Lopez does finish in third.
Yeah, how does that happen? How do you major a guy
that you lost to the previous day?
I mean, obviously,
sometimes you just don't have it, I guess.
Yeah, no, and you may take someone for granted, and whatever it may be. But 220 pounds in the Southwest region, you got Anthony Walters, a guy I just mentioned for Bishop McCourt. He's undefeated on the season, 27-0. Yeah, Anthony Walters, he does not want to finish runner-up for the third year in a row. So he's up at 220 pounds, and he is your top seed at 220. But Dom DeLuca, a guy who was ranked as high as number 1 in the state. He had a few tough losses. In fact, he got pinned by Landon Fisher from Huntington at the team duels. But DeLuca is 42-3 on the season, and he's your second seed. So we could potentially see a Landon Fisher-Dom DeLuca rematch here. Landon Fisher was the runner-up to Anthony Walters in the District 6 finals, but I think that Fisher gets through Mason Augustine from North Star, and I believe DeLuca will probably get into the semifinals as well. So Jake Ryan from Mount Union is a sophomore. He's going to be his toughest challenge there. But if DeLuca wrestles like he did last week and not the week at Team States, I think he has a chance to make it to the semifinals and possibly the finals.
He looked a lot different this week than he did at the state championships, that is for sure. So we'll see if he can rebound and have a stronger tournament. But definitely as DeLuca coming in, and you mentioned during the season he was a number 1 ranked wrestler, to have Walters come up, I'm sure is something that had to be a little disheartening for DeLuca.
Well, and DeLuca, I mean, I would love to see that. Well, number 1, I'd love to see the DeLuca-Landon Fisher rematch.
Which I think will happen.
Well, I hope it does. And then the winner of that, I mean, I'd like to see DeLuca. We saw what Anthony Walters did to Landon Fisher last weekend, but I'd like to see DeLuca match up with him, because DeLuca is about 6'8",
yep, and
Walters is a tank and about 5'8". So I mean, the height difference there and alone is just fun to see. So it'd be interesting to see how that all plays out.
285 pounds, Bishop McCoy of Southside. He wins his second WPIAL championship. He had to go to overtime to do it, but he beats David Schufert of Valley 3-1 to win the title. Those two were head and heels above the rest of the competition here in the WPIAL championships.
Another Bishop McCourt wrestler here, Josiah Jones, also a 2-time state runner-up. So him and Walters, man, how cool would that be if they both won a state title this year?
That'd be incredible.
Instead of being 3-time state runner-ups, they both win a title their senior year. But Josiah Jones, he has looked very good this year. He's 28-1 on the season. He is your top seed there. Bishop McCoy is your second seed, 35-1 on the season. Both these wrestlers were state medalists last year, and Josiah Jones was at 220 pounds, but he's going to wrestle heavyweight in college, so I'm not surprised to see him competing up at this weight. But I think those two are kind of the front runners here. But as you said, in the WPIAL finals, McCoy went to overtime with Schufert, so I could see Schufert making the semifinals.
Yeah, I really could. And Schufert has gotten better as the season's gone on, and from last year to this year. But McCoy didn't look like himself. I mean, he didn't seem as aggressive in this tournament. So we'll see if he changes things, or maybe he's been battling something that we don't know about. But comparing his performance from previous tournaments to now, it looks like he just wasn't as aggressive out there against Schufert, as well as even in his semifinal match, which was only a 10-5 win over Mitch Miles of Laurel. He just, again, didn't seem as aggressive as he typically is.
And how many do you think the WPIAL gets to the state tournament? I think they get at least 2, possibly 3 folks.
In the 285?
Yeah, 285.
Yeah, I would say definitely 2. I think McCoy and Schufert for sure. And I like Cody Vokes as well. I think he had a good tournament. He ends up placing third pretty soundly. And, if I was to pick another guy, I think he'd be the person that I would look out for.
Okay.
You look at, from recapping the WPIAL championships, how some of the teams did. First, I want to mention there was a couple big names that weren't wrestling. Dominic Fundy of Best Center did not wrestle. He had a hand injury, so he is state runner-up last year. Will not be wrestling in the postseason. Another guy, Fort Cherry's Nick Candelor.
Yeah, he
also was not there in the tournament.
He's been banged up all year.
So a couple of guys that you typically would see in the state championships, let alone the WPIAL championships, they were not present at all. For the WPIAL, the leader was Burrell, as expected. They had 13 wrestlers in the WPIAL championships. They advanced 11 for the Southwest
That's
Regional Tournament.
Huge for them.
The next team down was Derry. They end up going 9 for 10 in the WPIAL Championships. Freedom, they go 8 for 10, and then South Fayette, they go 7 for 11. So as expected, those were the top teams in the team side of it, and they were the top teams here as well. McGuffey went 6 for 8, so they had 6 qualifiers in there as well. So your top 5 that we talked about all season, your top 5 here individuals as well.
Right.
The tournament schedule for the Southwest Regional pairings. Wrestling starts on Friday. It's going to be at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. So if you're going to head out there, wrestling's going to start the preliminaries at 2 o'clock on Friday. And then the estimated time for the quarterfinals is set for 5:45. On Saturday, wrestling begins at 10 a.m. with the second round of consolations. Semifinals estimated to begin around noon. And then the consolation finals, fifth place matches, as well as the finals, all set to start at 5:45. So that is your wrestling schedule at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. AAA also gets underway this weekend with the 4 section tournaments. Section 1 will be at Kiski. Section 2 will be at Connellsville. Section 3 at Fox Chapel. And Section 4 will be at Trinity. Matches begin at 9:30 a.m. and I believe they're going to wrestle straight through. I don't think they'll have much of a break as far as I know.
I don't remember in years past. I think they do just wrestle them straight through.
So there'll be 3 mats at each site, full wrestlebacks from the round of 8, but wrestling will begin there at 9:30 at each of the 4 section championships.
I'm excited to see the brackets and the seeds. The WPIAL, they do such a good job. And, I mean, being somebody who has to track down and hunt down brackets and seeds, the WPIAL is by far the most efficient, I would say, at providing especially media members with the seeds and the brackets and all the information so early. And it's nice to have that. It's a relief. I know what to expect with the WPIAL, so I'm excited to see the brackets and the seeds for the section tournaments.
And if you're waiting to see who's going to be at each weight class, make sure you stay with us. PA Power Wrestling is we'll have all of the seeds and the brackets and everything that comes out. Once we have them, we're going to get them out to you guys so you can follow along.
And rankings as well are updated. And this is the best time of the year for rankings. I love them because it's easy because you have these guys that haven't seen each other and they haven't gone head to head. And it's nice to see how the chips fall in this sense. So definitely check out the regional and the state rankings, which will be updated this week. And yeah, we're going to be providing all the coverage you can.
And make sure you stay with us next week as we'll recap the Southwest Regional Tournament as well as the sections for the top 4 from Trinity, but then also previewing the WPIAL Championships for AAA.
It's going to be fun. It's that time of the year.
Should be a lot of fun. Thanks to Trent Schulthesis of Freedom, and congratulations to him again on winning a WPIAL Championship, and thank you for my broadcast partner, Jeff Upson. He does a great job each and every week.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate that. You don't have to thank me.
I know you. I felt like you needed it after the last couple of weeks. Been kind of going at you a little bit.
Yeah, you have. And so
I wanted to make sure I gave you a little extra shout out today.
Thanks for the shout out.
Yeah,
really appreciate it.
Anything for you.
Thanks.
Thanks for everybody listening. Make sure you stay with us next week here on WarUp on the WPIAL.